Hey everybody, welcome live to Levi Stadium, where today the 49ers finished day 2 of their OTAs for this offseason. It was a good practice for the 49ers. We're going to go through all of the top things that jumped out about that next on Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. Hey everybody, welcome live to the channel. I'm here at Levi Stadium. The 49ers today holding day 2 of their OTAs for the 2023 offseason. And it was a good day. We got to finally see Trey Lance back on the field for the first time since September. We're going to get into his performance. Sam Darnold, we got our first glimpse of him as well as a number of the veterans making their return. Some of these second-year players really looking a lot different in terms of their bodies as they come into year 2 with the strength that they've been able to build, those types of things. So let's take a look at it. Actually, I would say the biggest news coming out of today didn't even occur on the field. It actually happened after practice was over. It was Brock Purdy coming to the podium. This wasn't expected. None of us were expecting to have Brock Purdy step up. We knew that the 49ers were going to be having some of their players come up. But one of the interesting pieces about the Purdy discussion was, he's still recovering from that surgery to repair the torn UCL in his throwing elbow, the injury that he suffered in the NFC Championship game. But what was interesting here was he had been expected to be reevaluated around 12 weeks post-surgery, which would have come next Friday. So according to the 49ers, throughout this process, especially over the last couple of months since the surgery had been completed, the belief was that he was going to be reevaluated around that 12-week mark, after which that time the decision would be made whether or not to begin his throwing regimen and so on and so forth. Well, according to Brock Purdy, he is expecting to begin throwing next week. That's a little bit ahead of schedule, not much. Even if it's a couple of days, he's definitely ahead of schedule there. So, that's one of the positives here is that Brock Purdy expects himself, looks like he's going to be starting to throw a little early. On top of that, you had Kyle Shanahan noting that the goal for the 49ers is to have Purdy ready to start week 1. And that in order for that to happen, Purdy would need to show that he's ready during practice, which means that if Purdy's going to be back and he's going to start week 1 for the 49ers, he's going to show up during training camp at some point. We'll see what that looks like. But I've noted that if you go base your time frame off of the other quarterbacks that have undergone this procedure, most recently with the 49ers, Nick Mullins undergoing it, it took him 5 months from the time that the surgery was performed till the time that he was cleared and ready to go. He didn't join right away with Philadelphia, but he signed with them. He was already working and he was on the way, so he didn't miss any time. With Purdy here, it's definitely trending in that direction. And one of the things that he did note was that he plans to continue working here in Santa Clara with the teammates throughout the OTA sessions and minicamp, which is going to go through the middle of June. Once OTAs and minicamp are completed, there's a 40-day period between that point and the start of training camp. According to Purdy, during that time, he's going to actually go out to Jacksonville, Florida, where his personal throwing coaches are, and he's going to be working with them to get his mechanics all right. So just based on the way that it came out today, listening to Brock Purdy talk, listening to what Kyle Shanahan had to say, I think there's a really strong case that we are going to see, or very strong chance that we're going to see Brock Purdy on the field week 1 for the 49ers in Pittsburgh. Everything is starting to trend in that direction. So we'll see how that plays out over the coming weeks. But for today, the story, that's one of the big takeaways. But in terms of what happened on the field, the quarterback competition, it's still there. Purdy's not practicing, so that means it's up to Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. They're going to be the primary combatants during the OTAs and minicamp in terms of this quarterback competition. We'll see what happens again with Purdy once training camp starts. But you look at today's practice, and it was our first chance to see what Trey Lance looked like. We know the discussion throughout this offseason has been Trey Lance working on his throwing motion, his improved mechanics, all the work that he's done working with Patrick Mahomes, Jeff Christensen, all those types of things. And I'll say this about Trey Lance. When you in a lot of my reports and a lot of the discussion last year during training camp and OTAs, it was about how Trey Lance looked throwing to the receivers during one-on-one period, the inaccuracies at times that would show up there, which were concerning. And I can say that today they weren't there. He was much more accurate than we've seen him in the past. He looked really solid there. You get into the 7-on-7s and team. They didn't do a whole lot of team. It was mostly 7-on-7 because the offensive and defensive line, the contact has to be minimized there. But in that period, Lance was 12 of 7, which is a really good number when you look at what he did during that time. 12 of 17. One of those incompletions was the result of either a pass interference or a hold on Deommodore Lenoir. So if this had been game stats, he would have finished today at 12 of 16. So a good day for Lance at 12 of 17. The numbers are there. That's a solid. The one thing that I'll say is that there were a couple of times where he struggled a little bit. A couple of his completions were, after holding onto the ball, which is tough when you're in 7-on-7s because you don't have a pass rush to trigger you in terms of scrambling or anything like that. So you kind of just stay and hold in the pocket. There was a couple of times that he was late. There was a couple of throws that were over, just off the mark a little bit. One of them was to Chris Conley running an over route from left to right, and the ball was it was a little bit of a deeper throw, a little bit behind him, and allowed that because it was just a little bit behind him, it allowed the ball to be knocked away. The other thing on that one too is when you're listening to what I'm saying about the quarterbacks during the 7-on-7 and team period. One thing to note is that the direction that they were going, they were working into the wind. There was a pretty strong headwind blowing against them today, and you'll hear that also when we get into the kicker discussion as well, because there was some kicking competition going on too. But they're throwing into the wind, so that's going to hold the ball up a little bit. This particular pass was just a little bit behind Conley. That allowed the defender to get there. Remember, again, Lance is early on in this process. There was another throw during team period. Look, he was a little bit late, threw to the flat in the left side to Kyle Juszczyk late. And because he was late, it allowed Curtis Robinson to break on the ball. He nearly was able to come up with the interception. He got the pass break up on that one. The linebacker getting over to knock that away. But you look at this today, for me, when I watch Trey Lance in practice today, I know there's a couple missed opportunities. There's a couple things that you want to have him do better. But none of that really matters because today was day 2, getting back into the groove of actually practicing football with teammates instead of just working on your own. So the overall performance today for Trey Lance, I thought, was solid as he returns to the field for the first time since September. So some good, some bad. I wouldn't even say bad. Some good, some not so good. And at the end of the day, he was good because it's only day 2 returning back from that injury. Now, in terms of Sam Darnold was pretty good as well. Darnold finished the day up 11 of 15. There was some, here's the thing about Sam Darnold. We knew coming into this, the discussion around Sam Darnold this offseason has been that Sam Darnold is a great thrower of the football. He throw it with the best of them, all those things. Put up whatever kind of, give whatever kind of, great thing that you can when it comes to Sam Darnold throwing the football. That's what we've heard throughout this offseason. And it showed. I'll be honest, it showed. His throwing ability was a hot topic. It was easy to see why during the early portion of practice today when they were doing the warm-ups, throwing to, just working on the stuff that the quarterbacks work on before they start working with the receivers, even though he had a couple of the running backs and George Kittle working with them. It was easy to see that because he was extremely accurate. Every ball was right in the guy's chest, right in the guy's somewhere between the shoulders and the waist. Every ball. But that's with no pass rush. That's with nothing around him. That's without a guy's moving. And you should be able to do that. That's the thing that I kept saying last year during training camp is those are layups. If this was those throws that I'm talking about there, that's equivalent to a layup line in a basketball game for basketball, not a game, but in a basketball practice. Those are the layup line. You get the ball, those are easy. Everyone should go into the bucket. Same thing here. So for Darnold to do that wasn't a surprise. And then, like I said, he was really good then. However, as practice ramped up, things changed, as people would probably expect. Despite the solid completion percentage, like I said, he was 11 of 15. He had a number of throws that weren't on the mark. There were several times where the receivers had to stop and catch the ball. They weren't really catching. There wasn't very often that they were able to catch the ball in stride without having to break down at all. So from that standpoint, I would say, it wasn't the best of performances. But at the same time, is he going to the right places? Is he going to the open receivers? Yes, that was good. That was the case for the most part with Lance today as well. And then you look at it, and like I said, a couple of his throws were off the mark. One in particular was a deep ball to Danny Gray down the left sideline. Gray had gotten behind the defender. He was open, and the ball just kind of held up in the air a little bit too long, and the defender was able to break on it, get there, and out-muscle Gray to the ball to knock it away. So that forced an incompletion. And then also, another hot topic around Darnold this offseason has been his ball handling, and that showed up a little bit today. He fumbled one while pulling away from center during team drills. Not sure if it was going to be a pass play or a run. It looked like he got the ball clean from the center, and then the ball slipped out of his hands. He got lucky, the ball bounced up, and they were able to get it. I'm not sure. It got into the hands of Ty Davis-Price, who was able to scoop it up and make something out of it. So, you look at both these guys. You've got Trey Lance having a good practice compared to where he had been. So there's some improvement there. Sam Darnold looking pretty much like what you would expect in terms of putting the ball right on the money when there was nobody around him, and then struggling a little bit when he's working with receivers. The other thing too to remember with both these guys is it's day 2. They haven't worked with the receivers much at all. So if they're not right on the money, in like the 7-on-7s and the team portion, I wouldn't put too much into it, but that's where they are so far. And then the other thing is Brandon Allen. He's the third quarterback right now for the 49ers with Brock Purdy not there. Allen stepped in. He only had 7 passes today, but he hit all 3 of them. All 7 of Allen's throws were completed. There was a couple of times where he was late on throws and those types of things, but again, he was 7 for 7. The one interesting piece to note on Allen is once he stepped into the offense, the ball started going down the field more. With Darnold and Lance early on, there was a lot of check down, a lot of short throws into the flat, a lot of quick outs, those types of things, quick slants and things like that. Just the ball wasn't going down the field, even though, there was a couple of times where it looked like there might have been receivers that were open. Brandon Allen stepped in, made those throws. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out. But, it's Lance and Darnold, and then Brandon Allen is getting the scraps, as you can tell by having only 7 targets. With today, the way that the rotation went was you had Lance working with went first, Darnold second, Allen third, Lance taking 5 reps, Darnold taking 5 reps, Allen taking 2, and then so on throughout. So the quarterback competition, though, definitely getting kicked off today. Looking forward to seeing how this plays out. And like Daniel says over here, if you guys could hit that like button for me, that would be much appreciated. I'd really appreciate that. J Mill, where was Brock today? Dude can't even step up in the pocket. Too small. Can't see over the defenders. Same fans talking about Brock called Russell a midget. Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing with Brock Purdy. He was here. Just and like I said, he had a nice conversation with us in the media room. We weren't expecting that. It was good to hear from him directly for the first time this offseason. Moving on, Christian McCaffrey. He was one of the veterans that showed up, as was Kyle Juszczyk, and Brandon Ayuk was here today, working on the side. George Kittle. So, McCaffrey, he was a full participant today, and he just looked like he was playing at a different speed than the rest of the offense. He caught a couple of passes from Lance during 7-on-7, and then once they got into the team period, a couple of carries over the left side that he busted off, and it just exploded through the line of scrimmage looked like untouched. So McCaffrey looking really solid. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We really didn't get much of a chance to watch Christian McCaffrey as a media, last year during practice, because by the time he wasn't here during training OTAs, he wasn't here during training camp. He showed up in the middle of the season, and our exposure during practice is limited once the season starts. So to see McCaffrey go through a full practice, that was pretty impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like throughout the OT periods in the minicamp and training camp. As far as some of the returning guys, though, Drake Jackson, this guy, I've talked a few times about thinking that he could be the step-up player this year, the guy who's going to have that year 2 leap. I really think that can be Drake Jackson. He's expected to get that first run opposite of Nick Bosa, and just looking at him today, he looks much stronger than he did last season. He's much thicker. His arms are much thicker. His lower half his legs look to be much bigger as well. And despite all that added bulk and strength that he's put on, he doesn't look like he's slowed down at all. He's still really quick off the ball. He looks like it looked to me like he's still showing that quickness off the ball, the bend around the edge. That was on display a couple of times during the defense's individual drill workout that they were doing. Drake Jackson really looks like he's improved and rebuilt himself for year two. And if he can just be consistent in his technique, get some things down, there's definitely ways to step up here. And that's the whole thing, is this is year two. These guys now have put in a year of NFL off-season workouts, working with an NFL strength and conditioning staff. And it shows with him, and it also showed with Spencer Burford, the right guard. Burford also looking big and strong, looking bigger than he did last year, just looking a lot thicker than he did last year. And I would say that the main thing, and I'll get to your question, Steve, in a minute, the one thing that I'll say with Spencer Burford that really jumped out to me last year when I saw him during rookie mini camp, and then it kind of just carried on throughout the entire season, was how strong he was able to strike the man across from him, how strong his hands were. And that showed up today. The offensive linemen working those drills, and there's one in which they strike one guy, and then another guy comes and they strike him. He's working at guard, so he's working with John Feliciano and another one. And there was one time where he got Feliciano so good, Feliciano was rubbing his chest right where Burford hit. He was telling him, basically, I think he was telling him, hey man, take it easy on me, because Burford is a strong guy, and he's looked really good. He looks like he's put on some weight. He looks like he's put on some strength. I'm looking forward to seeing what Spencer Burford can do. And also, one of the things I'd said to keep an eye on was the possibility of Burford maybe sliding out to offensive tackle. Didn't happen. He's playing right guard. Holden McKivitz is lined up next to him at right tackle. So I think it's going to be right guard or bust for Spencer Burford. I think he's going to win that job. And then the question came up over here a minute ago. I want to answer this one from Steve-O Supremo, even though it's not a super chat. Those are my favorite ones, but no, I'm just kidding. Jack, does the order they spoke mean anything? Brock, Sam, and Trey. I don't know about the Sam and Trey part, but I will say this. I do think that it means something when they had the fact that Brock Purdy was the first man to step up, and I could be completely wrong. Maybe it was just because the other two were in meetings post-practice or getting some work done after practice, and since Brock didn't have practice today, that's why he was able to step up, first. But beyond that, I don't think with Sam and Trey it has anything to do with where they are right now. Trey Lance took all the reps. Like I said, he was the first man up and everything today, and Sam Darnold was second. So I don't think that really makes I don't think that's anything to really read into too much there. Curtis McLeod says, hey, Jack, I heard Kinlaw looks slimmer now. So is he even going to play inside anymore? I don't think Kinlaw looks slimmer. Javon Kinlaw's always been somewhat of a slimmer defensive tackle. He's never been one of those defensive tackles that's really a bulky guy, right? He's not a DJ Jones or a Kalia Davis type. He's always been he's a tall guy, so that's going to make it really hard to really get thick. I think Javon Kinlaw, his build is very similar to Eric Armstead. He's going to be an inside player, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be an inside rotational piece. If you're looking at Kinlaw and his body type and all that kind of stuff and being slender, I'll say I'm going to pull this one up because it's Farrell and Bryant. Is that Austin Bryant, the new defensive end the 49ers got from the Detroit Lions? He is very slim. If you're looking at one of these, any of these defensive linemen as being slender dudes, Austin Bryant out of the free agent they picked up from Detroit, he is very, very thin. But doesn't mean anything really in terms of his playability, but that's just something that was noticed. And Steve-O coming through with the super chat. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It says for your 3-hour drive home. That's right. It's almost 5 o'clock. I'll be lucky if I get home tonight by 8:30. So I'll be missing dinner. I'm already in trouble with that. So let's roll through this. So some good stuff there. And then, I talked about Burford, talked about Colton McKivitz. Colton McKivitz, he's definitely working with the first group at right tackle, and he looked good. McKivitz working with during individual pass protection drills. looked good with his footwork. He looked good with his hand placement. This is the area that he needs to improve the most, stepping into the lineup this year. But really liked what I saw out of McKivitz. And Nick Zakel is another one who people have been talking a lot about. John Lynch singled him out during the pre-draft media session about how hard he's been working. He was interesting. I kind of was keeping an eye on to see where he was working. He worked a little bit with the centers during individuals. And then when they got into their team period at the end of practice, Zakel was lined up with the second offensive line at left guard. So I think Zakel's spot is going to be in the interior. I don't think he's going to be competing for a starting job anywhere in that spot right now, but he's, I think, going to be competing to be that interior rotational guy, that guy that can slide between left guard, center, right guard. And I think that's also where John Feliciano can do that as well. So they might have a couple of guys that can do that, and they might have a couple of tackles that they keep to do that as well. And speaking of a couple of tackles that can slide around, Jalen Moore, Moore entering his third season, struggled quite a bit last year. In my pre-show regarding OTAs, I wasn't too complimentary of him and his ability, but today with Trent Williams is not here at practice during OTAs right now. So with Williams not there at left tackle, Moore stepped in at left tackle, worked over there. The one thing that I'll say in watching Colt McKivitz and Jalen Moore working with the tight ends in their run blocking and that kind of stuff, it's clear that Colt McKivitz has better feet and is quicker. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen Moore struggle so much in the NFL. I think it's just his feet are a tad slow. He's just not quite quick enough getting to where he needs to get. That's why you see him struggle in pass protection as much as we've seen him since he's been with the 49ers. And that's why right now he's a backup, and he's not one of the guys that they're looking at to be the starter over on the right side. So Frankie coming in with another super chat. Any sign of Elijah Mitchell? Yes, Elijah Mitchell was out there. He looked good. Caught a couple of passes. Had a couple of nice runs. So he was definitely out there working hard. Got to see him run around quite a bit. Looking forward to seeing what he can do. If Elijah Mitchell can stay healthy, we know that he is a very good running back who has good power, breakaway speed. Maybe not the vision that you never necessarily want on a consistent basis, but Mitchell's a very nice player for the 49ers. He just needs to. The biggest thing there is he just needs to stay healthy. So, thank you very much for the super chat, Frankie. Another thing to keep an eye on today, the kicker competition. The 49ers have a kicker competition. I know they took Jake Moody in the third round, number 99 overall. They have Zane Gonzalez, the veteran, as well. Each of them made 4 attempts today in the middle of practice, and they were kicking into a strong headwind. They kicked from 33, 38, and 43 yards, as well as 48. They started off right hash, left hash, right hash, left hash. I think that's the way it went, but I know for sure they went back and forth. Both Moody and Gonzalez hit from 33, hit from 38, and from 43, and they both missed wide left from 48. I'll say this, though, it's clear in watching the two kick that the stronger leg belongs to Moody. The kick that he missed from 48 yards looked like he probably could have kicked it from about 65 into the wind and still been able to reach the crossbar. Now, whether it would have been accurate or not, I don't know. But the ball was when he kicked from 38 yards, the apex of the kick was around the time that the ball was crossing the goalpost. And that's kicking into a wind. This kid's got a super strong leg. He's going to help the 49ers out in field position, I think, for their defense, especially with the new rules that the NFL put in place for this year, where any kick inside the 25 can be fair caught and the ball will be placed at the 25. So you've got that. And this guy's got the leg that he can put it out of the end zone if he wants, or just kick the ball a mile high and let it land on the 1 yard line and see if they decide that they're going to fair catch it or try to bring that bad boy out. So we'll see how that rule plays into it. But the kicker competition today, Moody and Gonzalez, both missing from 48 while hitting all the shorter kicks today. In terms of the rookies and the DBs, Darrell Luter Jr., the rookie, 5th round draft pick, he looked good today. He was impressive during rookie minicamp. We saw that again today. He was matched up in coverage with Danny Gray on that deep throw down the left sideline that came from Sam Darnold. he was beat off the line of scrimmage, but he was able to make up that ground on that deep pass and get up and knock it away. So good recovery there from Luter. And overall, a solid effort out of him. He's looked good now in rookie minicamp, and he's looked like a good second guy right now for the 49ers here. He's going to be competing for that backup role. Also, Spencer Womack. Charvarius Ward did not participate in practice today. He was working on the side field. So Womack stepped in. He worked with the first unit today, looked solid, continues to make plays. He was very good throughout this portion of his rookie campaign, and that showed up again today. He just continues to make plays and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, because he has that inside-outside versatility. Jack looks like Chris Furster's brother. Thank you very much. That means I'm a hell of an offensive line coach, I guess. That's a good one. In terms of still sticking to the secondary, Isaiah Oliver, when the 49ers picked up Isaiah Oliver in free agency, I said that the 49ers had upgraded themselves in the nickel in terms of their coverage ability. That showed up today. Oliver did a really nice job on several occasions with tight coverage on receivers, broke up a couple of passes. One of those passes that he broke up was the over route to Chris Conley from Trey Lance. Conley had a step on him, a good throw, and it's probably a completion, but the ball was just a little bit behind him, and Oliver was tight enough that he was able to get his hand up and knock that ball down. So the ball hit Conley's hands, but he was able to rip it out for the incompletion, so that was a good one there. There was a couple of times that there was another one that he was able to knock away on a shorter route, and then he also had really tight coverage on the throw underneath. That was a completion. I believe that one went to the tight end, Charlie Warner. It was a really nice catch by Warner. That was one of those throws where it was really tight coverage across the board. Lance threw it late. I think in a game situation, Lance doesn't throw that ball as late as he did. And Oliver was just all over the back of Warner. So really good day for him. Let's check up. Now we got three rookies I want to talk about. I know I already talked about Darrell Luter Jr., but there's a couple other ones I want to talk about. But hey, look at that. We got Rob Shue in the house. Hey, Shue, how you doing? He says, Jack, way too early impressions of that logjam at the back end of the linebacker room. I'm getting there, Rob. I'm getting there. I'm almost there. I got a couple spots, and I'm going to get to that in just a second, because I want to talk about Braden Willis first. Braden Willis, the rookie tight end, he looks good. He's continuing to impress. I really liked what I saw from him during while he was working on the run blocking with the offensive tackles. We were able to see he was doing a really nice job. They had him lined up on the right side, doing a really nice job on those combo blocks with the offensive tackles, doing a really good job moving there. The way they had him set up there really fits his style as well. So he looked good there. And then once they moved into 7-on-7s, he looked good as well. Was able to bring in both of the balls that came his way. The first one actually was a throw from Sam Darnold, ran down. It was a hook, and run a little curl at about 10 yards right behind the linebacker. Darnold threw the ball a little bit too far to his left and towards the ground, and it just wasn't a really good ball from Darnold, but Willis was able to slide to his left and make the grab as he was going down. So really nice catch from Willis there. And then the other receiver I want to talk about is Ronnie Bell. So during rookie minicamp, Bell showed that he wasn't afraid to go over and go get the ball. Today he did more of that. He had 7 targets come his way, caught 6 of them. And the one thing I'll say about Ronnie Bell is that he is particularly good at getting open over the middle of the field and catching balls in traffic. He did that during rookie minicamp, like I said, on one of the deep throws over the middle. He did that several times on his 6 catches today. He just seems like he's a natural in this Kyle Shanahan offense. Now, whether or not, the question's going to be, do the 49ers keep 6 or do they keep 5? If they keep 6, Bell makes this roster, and I think if he can continue to grow, build himself up a little bit going into year 2. Remember, this is day 1, so I might be overhyping him a little bit, but the way that he looked today, the way that he looked in minicamp, based on the rookie minicamp, you put those two things together, and he looks like a guy who fits this offense really well and could possibly be a guy that steps in for Juwan Jennings if Jennings moves on. Because remember, Jennings is in the final year of his contract. He's going to get a bunch of money probably after this season. Bell seems like he's that guy who can really get open over the middle and work all that area. So, but Rob, don't worry, you didn't interrupt me. We're going to get back to it right now. We are going to talk about linebackers, and I'm going to talk specifically about Jalen Graham. I talked, during rookie minicamp, after rookie minicamp, I said that Graham looked like the best linebacker on the field. Remember, the 49ers picked up a linebacker a little bit earlier in Winters. They took him in the 6th round, and then they got Graham in the 7th. Of those two, Jalen Graham looks like the best, and he still looks like the best. Today, Fred Warner didn't practice very much. He practiced during individual and stuff like that, but once they got to 7-on-7 and team drills, he didn't participate. Dre Greenlaw, he sat out practice today. And you start to look at who was on the field, and I would say Jalen Graham, I don't know if he was the best linebacker on the field, but he's not that far off. He just moves so well. He's very good. He's a very good coverage guy. It makes sense because he was a kind of a safety type of role in college, but he just moves so well. And you look at that, and then you look at his body type, and he looks, if you can take yourself back to 2018, the rookie season for Fred Warner, when he wasn't quite as bulked up as he is now, that's what Jalen Graham looks like. His body type looks very similar to Fred Warner, and at that point, and still he's a little bit taller. He's not really that not on the shorter side. He's on the taller side, and this guy just moves really well and gets there. And like what I see out of Jalen Graham. And then in terms of the logjam at the position, the logjam at linebacker, what I would say there is you got Oren Burks, Marcelino McCurry-Ball, Curtis Robinson. Those were your top 3 today. They were the guys that worked with the first group today. Marcelino McCurry-Ball looks good. Oren Burks is going to make this roster because he's good on special teams. Curtis Robinson, he's fighting for a spot. He made it last year, and that's who Jalen Graham's fighting with, right? Jalen Graham's trying to take Curtis Robinson, Graham is trying to take Robinson's spot on this roster. And if he can continue to look the way that he's doing right now, I think he makes it. Winters is a different type of a player. He's bulkier, right? He's more muscly, and he just doesn't move as fluid as Graham. Now we'll see how this all transitions. Remember, right now they're not playing run defense, so they're not having to fill gaps. There's not the popping and that kind of stuff that goes on, right? So a guy like Graham, who's maybe a little bit on the slender side, is going to stand out in pass coverage in drills like what we're seeing right now. So we'll see. You watch Winters on film, and his pass coverage wasn't his specialty. It was more about how he could stop the run. So before we get too far into it, it is day 2, and we've got a long ways to go just with OTAs and minicamp. But I'll say that I think if I was ranking the 2 right now, I'd put Graham over there, on top of him. And if you wanted me to rank the linebacker room overall, it's Warner, Greenlaw, 1 and 2. That's easy. And then you've got Flanagan, Fowles, Oren Burks, Marcelino McCurry-Ball, Curtis Robinson, probably in that order. And then you get to the rookies, and that's where I said I think it's Robinson competing with Graham and Winters for a roster spot. I think one of those 2 rookie linebackers probably ends up with having to make it through the practice squad. And that's not a bad deal if they're on the practice squad. If you look at the way the 49ers have used that practice squad over the years, there's a really good likelihood that they could be up on game day and could be up to play special teams or something like that if it happens. And we got Fish and Chips coming in with a super chat, looking for good vibe chat for camps. Keep it up, Jack. Fish and Chips, keep it locked in here. One of the things I like to do on all of my shows when it comes to camp reports is I'm going to give you the good and I'm also going to give you the bad, but I like to balance it out because there's never a day where it's all just bad and there's never a day where it's all just good. So even if a guy has a rougher day, there's going to be something positive to talk about. And usually that's more along the lines of the quarterbacks. But yeah, keep it locked in. You want some good vibes, keep it locked in here every week when we do these camp reports during the I appreciate the super chat. These camp reports during OTAs, and then once we get to training camp, it'll be on a daily basis as with every practice. Were there any injuries today? Tisha wants to know. Thank you for your super chat. I don't know of any injuries today. There were a couple of players that weren't participating that were working on the side field. Like I said, Travaris Ward was one of them. Brandon Ayuk was another. I'm just kind of trying to remember Quantrez Knight. I don't think he was practicing. His hand was wrapped. It looked like there might have been something going on with his hand. We didn't get any report. They didn't give us a practice report today or a participation report in terms of injuries or anything like that. That's not required at this point. So those are just a couple off the top of my head. But I appreciate the super chat. But in the good news, though, there were no injuries. Nobody went down on the field today, so that was a positive. There was a couple of close calls with some stuff, but nobody going down. Rob coming in and saying that Graham is absolutely one of Scott McLuhan's favorite picks of the year. That dude can certainly evaluate a linebacker. McLuhan's a really good account evaluator of a lot of positions. Like everybody else, he doesn't get them all right, but he gets quite a bit. Ken Fashion Journey wants to know about Jason Poe. Jason Poe is working with the third offensive line group for Jason Poe. It's an uphill battle for him, just based on the size. It's going to be a rough go for him, so we'll see how that works out. Randall coming in says, I heard your boy Sam Darnold already fumbled a snap. Shocking. Yeah, he did. He fumbled the snap. It wasn't like a fumble where it hit his hands and he fumbled it. It was actually worse than that, in that he got the ball and he started to pull away from center and the ball fell out. I don't know if it like might have hit the left guard or if it just slipped out of his hand, the right guard, excuse me, or just slipped out of his hand. Not sure there. And I was looking at the backfield, so I didn't see what the offensive linemen were doing there. So I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if it was a run or a pass. Apologize for that. First day of practice, covering practice in a long time for me too. So I'll get better, I promise. That's it. There we have it. A good day, like I said. Trey Lance finishing his day today, 12 of 17. Would have been 12 of 16 if you take out the pass interference, defensive holding that I think would have been called on one of the throws. That would have been called on Deommodore Lenoir. Sam Darnold, 11 of 15 today, fumbled the one snap. What else did we have? We had the other quarterback, 7 of 7, Brandon Allen. And the big news, I think, today was the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan saying that the goal is to have Brock Purdy ready for week 1. And then in order for Brock Purdy to be ready for week 1, he's going to need to be able to practice ahead of time. And then Brock Purdy's telling us today that he will begin throwing next week, which is, I think, ahead of schedule. Based on what we had been told by the 49ers, by Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, 12 weeks post-surgery was when they were going to be getting the report as to if he could begin his throwing regimen. Well, that 12 weeks post-surgery would have been Friday of next week. So if he's throwing Monday, Tuesday of next week, that means that he's ahead of schedule by a bit. And then also Purdy going down to Jacksonville during that 40-day break between minicamp and the beginning of training camp, I think is a solid indication that he's going to be back in time for a good portion of training camp. We'll see how it plays out. I would be a little surprised if he's there day 1 of training camp. I don't think it's going to be much after that if everything continues on the same track that it is. But again, it all has to continue in the same direction. It's trending in a positive path right now. So knock on concrete, everything continues to go good for Purdy and for the 49ers, and they'll be ready to go. And I want to pull up this super chat. Randall likes to give me a bunch of shit over in the comment section, which I appreciate. I really do. I appreciate you keeping me on my toes, Randall. And I really appreciate you giving me the $10 super chat. And thank you for watching. And I'm glad you enjoy the coverage. And hope you appreciate it. And I hope everybody else over there appreciates it as well. And today's the only day that we're going to be here this week. We'll be back next week for week 2. So keep it locked in here. We'll be having more reports throughout the week, more coverage as the week progresses. So that's it for today from Santa Clara, everybody. Thanks a lot for taking the time to tune in. If you guys can do me a favor before you leave, hit the like button. If you're watching the channel and you're not already subscribed, you're new over here, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. And then also turn on your notifications because you don't want to miss any of the updates that come through. I got a lot of videos here today that are going to be uploaded. Haven't put them all up yet, but there is one video up on the channel with a nice throw from Trey Lance to that tight end. What's his name? George Kittle. So they're a nice one there. And then also Sam Darnold, and you'll get a full recap highlight thing coming up here as well. So keep it locked into the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, notifications, all that thing. Everybody else, have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll be talking to you soon. Take care, everybody.